and welcome back to part 2 of my autofocus freaking out of D&D and neurodiversity. The next thing that I do want to talk about, and we do have some other more questions, and we'll get to them shortly. And if there's anybody else who has questions, please feel free to post them in there and tag DM Chris Solo, and I will field those as quickly as possible. The next thing I do want to talk about is characters. So like creating a character that emulates you, like we've talked about a little bit with your was Thunder Cleric? Is that what it was? Yeah. So things like that, but I want to touch on something else that I've witnessed, and a friend of mine who had a little brother who is autistic brought this up and my mind exploded. How many people have seen Guardians of the Galaxy? Right? How many people understand that Drax is autistic? Never, like, hit the whole race of people. They're not technically, but everything about their race of people is autistic. And my friend told me that his little brother said, hey, there's a superhero like me. And literally my brain and my heart melted at the same time. Like, then I don't think it was done intentionally. Maybe it was, and whoever did that is an amazing human being. But regardless, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Representation, which is why we're having this panel. We're trying to not just normalize this, but we're trying to open people's eyes to things like this. But then also, you know, I don't consider myself a celebrity. Our show is semi-big or what have you, but we're still in that seat. Even the four of us right now in this panel, people are watching and consuming this media, and people are listening to what we have to say, and we all know the power of media and what it can make people do. Ha ha. But we are in the power seat, essentially. So we have that power to, you know, I have lots of NPCs that are on the spectrum. I have lots of NPCs that have same-sex marriages. Like, I have that power to now make this more inclusive for everyone. I know, Elizabeth, it was you and I were talking about the battle chair, right?
Yes. The combat wheelchair.
Combat wheelchair, yeah. So it's
so cool.
It's amazing, right? And I had no idea. I'm gonna bring that in. I don't know if I have to get permission or not, but I'm gonna try to bring that in. But that's the point, right? So like like as a network, we're trying to do that. So then the entire community feels inclusive, right? Where we feel like, oh wow, this guy really is like me, or this guy's really like. So it's like makes you very excited, right? Because like I was like getting really emotional reading through all the posts about the combat wheelchair. Same thing. Now there's a superhero. Now there's, you know, a character that I can play or whatever, and it was just like, wow, something so fucking simple, and yet completely overlooked. And that's something physical that you can see. But what we're talking about today is we can't see that necessarily unless you're really paying attention. So the next comment or question is talking about characters that we play that can emulate maybe our own personal characteristics, like, you know, making a character that has Asperger's or making a character that has ADD or OCD, and kind of almost normalizing it in your brain, but also just like helping you navigate those things. So I know, Elizabeth, you were talking a little bit about your character, but yeah.
And I have some kind of thoughts and recommendations around that. Like, if you are, especially like a DM, and you want to make your world more inclusive, that's awesome. Yeah, please, for the love of all things good in this world, do that. But also make sure that you're not just putting your characters in costumes.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, we talked about that last week too. Yeah.
This is not like, this is my disabled character, and this is my gay character, and this is, right? Like, having those be parts of who those people are. And the same thing happens when we think about any kind of diagnoses, right? My character, I'm not putting a diagnostic label on any of my characters or any of my players' characters. That's not the purpose of a diagnosis. The purpose of a diagnosis is to help inform treatment, to help you figure out how to navigate the world better. You shouldn't need diagnoses inside of your D&D game in that world.
Yeah.
Right? If having your character be, if your character is you and you have ADHD and your character is just a representation of you, and so it's easier for you to think about your character in terms of your character having ADHD, that's fine. totally fine with that. But when we're thinking about creating a character, I'm not creating a character that is like this, has the list of the DSM checklist, right? So the
I was
DSM,
just
Yeah.
thinking,
the Diagnostic and
Please
Statistical
don't.
Manual.
Please don't check off boxes. Please.
don't
It's
give
what
Wizards
we-
of the Coast any idea to sell more books, okay?
But what we're doing there, like when I'm creating my characters, I'm pulling in the pieces of myself that I really like, or maybe that I really struggle with, that I might have a harder time expressing in other places, right? Like, I am I love working with Game to Grow. It is one of the only workplaces I have really felt like truly accepted. I could just be myself, and that's amazing. But having that space to just be like, all right, we're going to throw some impulsivity there that I would not act on in my day-to-day life because it would cause problems for me.
Yeah.
But I can be impulsive in D&D. So I think it's totally fine to create characters that you are getting to like play with stuff, play with parts of you that you don't necessarily get the chance to express. But if you're creating a character that whose identity does not reflect your own, just be really careful about that. Make sure that you're being respectful.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you guys, but like I had my one, character who's the idealized version of myself.
Mhm.
Well, also like the same flawed version of myself. But I don't really. I think when I'm building characters, I don't necessarily try and build them with my own mental illness or my own stuff involved necessarily, except when I'm going, do you think you're really going to be able to keep track of all those spell slots? Like, is this something you really want to commit to learning for this one shot? Like, it's more like mechanically for me. I just know that like when I hear, like Elizabeth was saying, when I hear other people saying like, oh, I'm creating a character with this. And if I know that person like has, again, I can't know everything about somebody's mental state or past just by looking at them or talking to them. But like, if you're a friend of mine who knows they're neurotypical, like, and you're coming to me, like, as much as it sounds like you feel like, I know you think you're helping, but like, if it comes off as like, don't bring me a character saying I'm creating a character with DID. And I'm just like, why though?
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. Like, I just don't understand why. Like, I think people need to be very aware
If you wouldn't
of the
make a
choices they
Halloween
make.
costume,
It's appropriation. Like,
maybe not.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not going to go put the dark circles on under your eyes and have crap hair that day, don't come, like, sorry. Like, don't do it. Like, it's just, it's not, I did have a player at one point ask me about playing somebody with schizophrenia, and I was like,
you have schizophrenia? Then no. Like,
what do you mean? Like, what are you really trying to do here? And really, it was that they were wanting to play with an eldritch entity and hearing voices. I was like, okay, that's very different. We can discuss things, but I was like, it's really insensitive.
Yeah.
Let's not. Let's go a different route.
We do have a term question. DID.
Yep. So DID is Disassociative Identity Disorder. We are not going to get into it today. There is a lot of debate about it in the literature, but it is a type of dissociative disorder.
Yeah. So when I build characters, usually what happens is I start making this character because I love character building. It's like my favorite thing. I love to get into character. I love to role play. It's what it's all about for me. Even as a DM, I love my NPCs. So when I start making characters, usually what happens is I get about halfway through making them and then realize, oh crap, it me is usually, but it's like a different part. And then I start feeding in more. I mean, for wizards, like I'll just throw that out there without even being spoilery or anything. It's like I started building this thinking, okay, we're making a wizard kind of, this is just going to be like a one-off character. This is going to be great, whatever. And I'm just going to be kind of emo and I'm going to throw in some angst and stuff. And then I was like, oh wait, no, I can already tell that she's going to feel kind of like socially anxious and she's really not going to be good at opening up to people. And she's not going to trust, oh my God, it's me. It was just like this little
Yeah.
train going down, and then I was like, and it's high school Taryn. This is great. Okay, fun. Oh,
So-
she's really confused now too. Great.
Curious about this, because again, we all know how my crazy mind works. The things that we've spoken about the character and the evolution of Rook, how does that feel? As someone who kind of identified with some of the things and then feels like I pulled the right strings to shape it differently.
Like for a long time, like a lot of her stuff is like her just accepting, like most of her life is just accepting that things are bad, and that's just where they were going to be, and it wasn't going to get better, and like honestly, like knowing this like vindication and like this build of confidence, and like on Friday y'all are going to see a very different Rook a year later, like very different, and trying to be much more positive with herself and honest with herself as to who she is, and it's awesome. It's yes, it's good stuff, man. I'm loving it.
Yeah, and that and that's one of the things too, is because like I feel like I connect with our players so differently for each person, and I when I joke that I'm a warlock or I'm a superhero, but like I joke that utilizing my Asperger's and just how my brain works and how like normal things are hard for me, but like this fantasy, make-believe world is easy. But then I see myself in everyone, right? So like I see a lot of the things that I was dealing with in high school that early Rook was, and I was like, well, what would I like? And then I pitch it, and you're like, yes! And, like, the roof explodes, and you're like, yes! And I'm like, okay. And then I get excited, and I start talking about things, and then you, and it kind of goes back and forth, and it's just kind of this weird, awesome healing moment, right, as the character evolves, just organically like that.
Like, especially when it's like, it's a thought that crossed my mind, and it's like, well, we'll see, and then you mentioned it, and I'm like, absolutely, yes, see? It's there, it's a thing. Yeah. It's awesome. I mean, awesome. And as a player too, though, like it's very vindicating of like, yes, I'm like you feeling the growth in your characters, because that's what I'm going for. And I mean, as like Jinx is new, and I don't want to get too much into it, but like I'm definitely dealing with some stuff there, and I'm capping some things with Jinx, like, and I love her, and so like that's another thing I like to do. I like to feel growth, because I like the RP. It is soothing for me, and that's how I came into D&D was. Yeah. And so for me, it's a very natural process. I'm big into character development anyways. That's why all of my characters have like sad backstories. It's not because I'm like edgy. It's just that's one of the things in my writing and in my life is like the highs are always higher because of the lows that I've experienced. And so it makes those triumphs so much better for me. So, but that's just another part of me falling into my character and in my campaign.
And it makes it real. And then you can invest more because it feels real. Thank you for all the. I mean, I love these panels so much. It's not even funny. Like I love them so much. We have a lot of really good questions, but I just wanted to chime in a little bit. So I do a lot of character voices, but it's not even just like my character voices they're okay. You can identify that it's a different character, but like my mannerisms and everything that goes into it, I do tap into a lot of my quirks. Whether it's I'm always constantly, like, you'll see me do this often. Like, I feel like my right side of my face is getting droopy, and it's making me freak out a little bit. But, I have
that, too.
I don't know what it is specifically, but you can look at
vagus nerve, probably.
My left eye is much wider than my right eye right there. I notice this because I look at my face
I'm, like,
3 times.
Looking at myself now, like,
it's terrible. Don't do it. Stop it. But I take things like that, like little quirks I do all the time, and I put them into the NPCs. So then I feel like I'm getting it out. I feel like I'm in my mind normalizing it, whether it's me fidgeting with something, like we were talking about me fidgeting with D20s all the time, and players just think that I'm rolling dice behind the screen all the time. But for me, it's kind of, I feel like I'm getting it out, and then it kind of relaxes a little bit. And there's still a lot of things, though, too. Like, I still bite my nails on screen, which I don't want to do. Like, seeing myself do it, and then just knowing that other people are watching me bite my nails, like, I'm trying to, navigate different ways to work through those anxieties and things. But, it's it's just one of those things, too. And if people don't realize or not, Viago is my version
This is what I
of
do.
yes. Oh my God, it's so
Make
pretty.
things.
We put our things to work, and that's what we do.
Yeah. Brace yourself, Diane,
yeah.
all night.
But Viago is my version of Drax. He is like a Care Bear teddy bear, and he always says like inappropriate things. Not inappropriate things. He just says the wrong things at the wrong times, and he's very abrasive. So it's just always those things that you kind of put in there, and then it kind of feels like it's me. But then I have big old orc teeth, and all these crazy things or whatever. But yes. So and that was the other thing too, is you guys can see it, is masks, right? We talk about masks, right? So speaking of Viago, which I'm very sad that we only have 2 more episodes of Viago, but he's going to be another show. I have a mask that I wear for Viago.
That's so fun.
Whenever he rages, he can only rage when he wears the mask, and that was the mechanic that I had built into Viago, and he didn't rage until like almost level 4, I think. Like I'm a barbarian that didn't rage, and like it going through those challenges of me trying to like fight that, it helped psychologically, I think, anyway. But anyway, we can talk about characters all day, but we have a few really awesome questions I do want to get to, and I know we
I just got another one come through that I'm really excited about.
Yeah, I got that one too. So, can we speak to resiliency, specifically things that help you deal with things or people when you are having an especially difficult time?
Routine, therapy. So resiliency is something that it's not like, oh man, my life is really hard and I'm super overwhelmed. Like, I guess I should be resilient now, right? With a lot of the good things in life, right? Preparation can be really important, which doesn't mean that it is ever going to be too late to reach out for help. It's never too late to reach out. It's never too late to reach out for support. It's never too late to go to therapy. You're not going to go to therapy. I'm a therapist. I can tell you this. You're not going to go to therapy and be like, yeah, I should have gone to therapy 10 years ago. And your therapist is going to be like, yep, can't be here anymore. Didn't come 10 years ago.
It's too
late.
You had your chance.
Sorry, bye. Like that doesn't. If anyone tells you that, like you should report them to their licensing board because they're a terrible therapist.
Right.
But having those things
now.
like exercise and sleep, right? Those things that our brain starts to tell us is not important, because when we start to get distressed, when we start to get overwhelmed, our brain literally switches over into survival mode. But unfortunately, survival mode for our brain is short-term survival. It's meant to get us through the next 5 minutes to 8 hours.
Yep.
That's why we get so much adrenaline that we can't sleep. The problem is, unless you're actively being chased by mountain lions or you're in an active war zone, you probably are not facing a physical threat that is going to kill you in the next 5 minutes, 8 hours. And so things like sleep, nutrition, and exercise are so important. And they're the easiest things to kind of fall off the wagon because your brain will tell you that they're not important.
Yep.
So going back to those really basics can be really important. And if you can't figure out how to sleep, alcohol and weed are not the answer, because they actually make your sleep really poor.
Yep.
And so you should look into sleep hygiene or talk to a therapist.
Melatonin. Yeah. I mean, I feel like we've touched on a lot, and that really just summed that question up.
Yeah.
Like,
good answer.
It was a damn good answer. We can jump to the next one.
I just want to add on real quick, like about, like, kind of forgiving yourself, like in terms of resiliency, because I think a lot of us have like cognitive distortions, and a lot of us, as we keep saying, have been like, people will take advantage of the sad kids.
Yeah.
Know that, like, doing half the dishes is better than doing none of the dishes.
Oh,
like,
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, like doing something is better than doing nothing. Like, because of my ADHD meds, which are like stimulants, I have a hard time, like, I have no appetite. I'm also, like, again, dealing with a lot of stuff. So I've lost a lot of weight during quarantine. And because I'm also, like, I have, like, food aversion, like, to the texture and stuff. So, like, I will put food in my mouth, but, like, my mouth is so aware of every texture of the food. It's just like, no, like I cannot eat it. So I'm like, I need to like something is like, obviously it's not a long-term solution like you're saying, but like I have Slim Fast. So like there with protein. So like there are days when if I don't feel like I can eat anything solid, I need to get some sort of good calories in my body.
Absolutely.
So like, compromises,
Yeah, no, that's
Absolutely.
super important.
Yeah, and then I mean, and if you know somebody like that, I mean, not everybody's super open about that either. Like, I think it's not like you need to go posting your business everywhere, but you also, it's okay to feel the way that you do. You shouldn't, you don't need to be ashamed of it. And having those supportive people in your life, they can be really friggin' hard to find, because sometimes when you're at your worst, or I mean, and you're blaming yourself, and you're irritable, or you're tired, and you're feeling lazy, or you're feeling annoying, like that's one of my like least favorite words in the world, is because I got told that so often.
Yeah.
But it's like when you have those people that are understanding, like my husband's a freaking saint, because like there was a day where it was just like I woke up, it was bad, and I was just like, nope, shutting it off. And I just went back to bed. Like I just slept, woke up, the dishes were done. He had ordered lunch. Like everything was taken care of. And it was just like, for me that day, it completely turned it around, because there it was. Like,
You didn't even have to ask.
That's
no,
awesome.
but it's like little stuff like that. Just saying.
And my guess is, so you didn't have to ask, which is amazing, but that also means that you probably set that up in advance. Not like that day in advance, but having that communication, right? Like it does not matter how amazing your partner is, they cannot read minds.
Yeah.
My husband is a psychologist. We're as close to mind readers as you can get.
Does not read minds.
And we're not mind readers. I remember like several years ago, I came home after like a 16-hour day, and I was exhausted and I was sick. I should not have gone to work. This was pre-COVID. Wasn't sick, contagious sick. I was just sick. Yeah. And I got home and I like collapsed on the couch, and Jared was like, "Hey, are you okay?" And I was like, "No." And he was like, "What can I do to help?" And I was like, "I need you to make dinner happen. Like, I don't want to think about it. I just need you to make it happen." And he said,
"Ask me what I want."
He said, "Are you hungry right now?" And I said, "No." And then an hour passed, and then 2 hours passed. And by this point, I was starving. And instead of saying like, "Hey, I'm really hungry, I need you to make dinner happen now," instead, I pulled deep into my Southern roots and I said, "Hey, are you hungry?" And he said, "No." And then he went back to playing video games. Is that because he's a bad listener or he doesn't care about me? No. It's because I didn't say, "I'm hungry, I need food now." Right? And we hadn't had this happen before. I hadn't set up where I said like, "Hey, I need you to handle it. I need you to do everything about it." So I'm starving. I have no food, and he has no idea what is going on.
And I
So
remember
it is awesome, right? If you have a mind reader in your life, that's super cool. But it's really important when you have the spoons, when you have the ability to be able to talk about what you need, to actually have those conversations.
Communication.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole thing. But yeah, no, that's it is about communication, and it's about looking at those cues, which does ironically tie into the next two questions, which I'm going to kind of put into one because we're running out of time.
Excellent.
But it's so as a DM, how do you take everyone's different experiences into account, like making sure that no one is offended or you're not being or coming off as insensitive, which also kind of goes into the last question. Setting and respecting boundaries is super important. We need tips or tricks on how to enforce and help others understand these boundaries, especially when playing with a group of primarily neurotypical people. So for me specifically, because I'm one of those people and I feel like I'm always coming off like a troll sometimes, this is why I preach that you should always record your sessions. Always. Video recording ideally, but at least audio recording. Because I've gone back, and especially my earlier episodes, I've gone back and watched when I say something that I thought was a great idea and a cool thing, and 3 of the 4 people there did not look like they were having fun. I did something incorrectly, or I needed to change. So then I see those cues because now I'm not into it, right? You're not into the character, and you're looking at everybody and like, this is what we're doing. We're building all these things, and then it blows up.
And you're adrenaline is running.
Oh yeah, I'm off the charts at that point. I'm in Narnia. Like I'm not even present at the table right then. But when going back and watching it, you can pick up on those cues. So that's one of the tools and tricks that I use as a DM, because I'm already doing it. But I highly suggest it for anybody else that is just doing a home game. You don't have to do anything with it. Say, hey, I'm recording this just so I can go back and confirm.
Get consent to record.
Yes, get consent. Yes, get consent to record. But you're just doing it just for your own purposes to go back through, continuity issues and just check things. But it brings up really awesome questions that nobody else is going to tell you. Hey, when you did this thing, it kind of sucked. Especially if some of your players and something that you do is insensitive, and you're not, maybe I say something and it comes off really abrasive because they're fidgeting with something. And I didn't even think about it in the moment. I'm like, can you stop doing that? And then keep going, right? Like, in the beginning, I was really anal about audio, right? With, like, I have players that would fidget with stuff, and they would make noise, and they'd be flipping through binders, and, like, they're flipping through binders because they have a lot of spells, and they don't want to do the digital, so so I needed to figure out ways to navigate that. But those are my tips that I've done to navigate some of those.
From one of my past jobs, we did a lot of customer service training, and part of what's super helpful to me also as a ADHD player is setting proper expectations. So like, say if I was running a workshop, I'm going to try, it doesn't really much matter if you'll guess where this is from, but like say I'm running a workshop and I'm like, so this is an iPad. But it's like, it's not about, okay, we're getting in and this is all the information and we're going to just go. And it's not even about, this is the first day, this is the syllabus. Like, hi, I'm Rachel and I'm here to help you. This is what this session is going to look like. Like you did at the beginning, like say when there's going to be a break, and like saying things like letting them know you're human, if you've got people you've never played with, like, this is my background, this is where I'm coming from, I'm still learning these things, and if I mess up, I want you to tell me, whether it's big or small. Like if you want to set up like even an anonymous Google ask, like a jot form or something, like ask people for feedback, because a lot of time people are afraid to say things because they don't know how you're going to react to them saying stuff. So if you say to someone up front, I don't want anyone to have a bad time. I want everyone here to feel welcome and to have fun. So if you have any suggestions, you don't have to give me your name, but like let me know, because like you said, I can't do anything about it if you don't tell me.
Yep.
So like I feel like everyone's kind of said, you have to set that up, because especially you've got AFABs who are maybe in a place where, do I really want to test the waters with a cis male DM who I don't know? Like, is this going to become a thing? Like, you just, if you make it so that your environment from the get-go is about being human and being allowed to make mistakes, because this isn't a competition. This isn't, this isn't our jobs. This isn't anything to do with capitalism. We're going to have fun. So if you're not having fun, tell me how I can help you have fun.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you.
Yeah, and I mean that's mine. It's as simple as like asking, because I'm also my mannerism on the table is very open. My players, I make sure they know who I am. They know what to expect. I am, what you're seeing is what you're getting anymore. That's what I do. So like I do the open book thing of like, hey man, if you have a question for me, feel free to ask. I don't care if you ask me about trauma in my life. I will tell you about said trauma. But it's like, here, if please feel free to tell me if something bothered you, or if you are going through something. I've had players tell me before a session, like we've been into some dark stuff on occasion, and they've been like, hey, this is happening. Can we avoid like X? At the time it was like, there had been some shootings and other things in her neighborhood. And she was like, these are some things that are associated with it. I would like to avoid these things. And I was like, yeah, for sure. Cool. Like, it's as simple as that. It was just like, ask them if something bothers them, if they have triggers, or just make sure that they know they can come to you.
Mm-hmm. We can do a whole talk on boundaries. I've done a couple of them before. We can do a whole talk on session 0. It's a lot of my job. The thing I'm going to actually recommend is kind of piggybacking off Duval, and that is learn how to apologize and model that you can do it. So, and like find someone that you trust to practice, right? Because none of us are good at apologies. Because saying, I'm really sorry, but probably not an apology.
I'm guilty.
Because after that but, you're going to undo. And that is normal. That is a normal human thing. Yeah. Because if you care about other human beings, you don't want to hurt their feeling. And so if someone tells you that you've hurt their feelings, your first response is going to be, holy crap, I definitely didn't mean to hurt their feelings. So how can I convince myself and also them that I didn't actually do what they are accusing me of doing? That is a normal reaction, but it needs to not come out of your mouth.
Yeah. Discounting what they just said.
If you're feeling super dysregulated and overwhelmed, it is okay to say, I'm hearing what you're saying, and that was not my intention, and I need a minute to think about that, right? Like, it's okay to say that so that you can walk away and you can think through and you can talk to a trusted friend to figure out whether or not you actually did that thing, or maybe they were overreacting. Yeah. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes it's both. But your players are not going to feel safe and actually trust that you are going to handle criticism well unless you can model it, right? So maybe that means when you accidentally do something wrong and you're the first to notice it, you go back the next session and say, hey, I realized I said this thing last session and it wasn't okay. And I won't do it again. And I'm really sorry if it hurt anyone's feelings, right? Like that kind of modeling means that you're way more likely to get the feedback you actually want.
Yeah. We have 2 minutes left. We have one last question, and we can maybe it's not an easy one, but I'm gonna throw it out there anyway. I feel like we added a half an hour, and it wasn't enough, and that's fine.
Yeah.
The last question is, how do you feel about self-diagnosers?
I think that diagnosis is something that's really complicated. I went to school. I have a PhD. A lot of what I do is assessment. I think diagnosis can be really helpful to inform treatment. I think that diagnosis is really complicated. I understand that not everyone has access to diagnostic services. Getting a diagnosis can be really expensive. It can be really hard to find the right kind of specialist. And so I can understand getting stuck. I think the problem that I see most often with self-diagnosis is that it's not quite right. And then that can keep the person from getting the treatment that would be the most helpful.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of things that are very close to other things. Like you can be on the spectrum and not have Asperger's or have Asperger's, and every treatment is very different than the other. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like that's exactly it. Is like, I mean, I think at the end of high school was when I started to suspect, hey, this isn't normal to think this way. And I kind of assumed for a while, I definitely probably have depression. But it wasn't until later in actually talking to somebody where they were like, you have anxiety and other things feeding that. And this is why you feel this way and this way. And this is causing, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. It ended up helping me in the long term because there were other things that I could do to stop X from happening if I took these first steps.
Yeah.
Totally. All right, y'all, I got to bounce, but I'm going to hear about Rachel's answer later.
You are amazing.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Thank you. Smiles. That is smart to smile like that when you go off because...
Oh, I always make the silliest faces, and it took like 6 months before people noticed. Like I make the most ridiculous faces. But yes, Rachel, you were very interested in responding. Yeah.
You guys, all three are American, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's a little bit different here in terms of our system, but to be transparent, to give an alternate perspective, I have never had a doctor accurately diagnose me in my life. My journey has been extremely independent. I have had to be tenacious and go through a lot of therapists and through a lot of diagnosis and just a lot of my own, like I said, reading. And it's not like, when I say reading, like going out, buying books, I'm basically doing differentials on myself. And I think there's a very popular GIF set on Tumblr about ADHD in AFAB people, where you're just told you're depressed and anxious until you get to like 18, 20, and then your life falls apart and you feel like you're terrible and you don't know how to be an adult. And I was seeing one doctor for a while and being treated for depression and anxiety, and you have to be very in tune with yourself, because I said to her, I don't feel right. I said, I don't feel like this is a complete solution for me. And from what I've been reading about people's actual lives, I think I have ADHD, and I would like you to refer me to someone to get me tested. And so I got referred to a psychiatrist who typically only does evaluations, but she's been my psychiatrist now for, I think, 2-3 years. And after about 6 months of talking to me, she's like, no, you're absolutely right. And most recently, she told me that in December, she's not practicing anymore. And that gave me a lot of abandonment anxiety. Like, oh, okay, that's fine. And then, like, as soon as I hung up the phone from the session, I just started crying.
Yeah.
But I was saying to her, like, I've been reading a lot about complex PTSD. And so this is like 3 years after ADHD. And she, turns out, had also been recently reading into it. And us, like, you know, coming to that point together, like, there are great doctors and there are great therapists. There are great people. But no one else is going to put you first.
Yeah.
Besides you. Like, if you don't put yourself first, no one else is going to. So you have to, like, you have to listen to doctors to a certain extent, but we all know that, like, what if you're coming in as like an AFAB Black child? Like, they're not going to look at that child's symptoms the same way they would with an AMAB white boy, because that's what the studies are based on.
Yeah.
So you really have to trust, like, your own experience and demand to be cared for, almost. Like, if I didn't ask to be tested, if I didn't say, this is what's wrong with me, and again, it's not just me doing a Wikipedia of the DSM and picking things at random. This is looking at my whole, it's your whole life.
Yeah.
So doctors are there to assist you, but you are the most experienced person in your body and in your life.
Yeah.
So you have to let that, like, if you don't feel like you're complete, don't be afraid to, like, seek that out. Like, start your quest to complete yourself. All these little side quests. There may be a bunch of side quests. Yeah. Exactly. Just read and bring stuff up to, you know, like when I sing Reddit, if you go on the CPTSD subreddit, I'm, you know, scrolling through going, oh, well, that's me. That's me. Because it's people just going, like, does anybody else feel like this? And I feel like that. I feel like that all the time. Yeah. And it's not saying that's you, but you're like, I have a lot in common with these people. Like, either people with ADHD need to stop being so relatable, or I need to go to the doctor. It's a good one.
Well, yeah, I mean, and you spoke to all of the things. I mean, there's thousands of misdiagnoses, whatever. You know, you can go to the doctor for any ailment and you get misdiagnosed, right? So something like this is also the same thing. So like you said, you know yourself more than anyone else does. You can spend hours and hours with a therapist or psychiatrist or, you know, whatever other terms that they use, and they'll get like a surface of it. They'll get part of it. Like, there's no way they would ever know everything. But again, if you resonate, like I did with watching the show, I was like, oh, hey, you're fired. I've been talking to you for a really long time, and you didn't see this big thing, right? You know, like, having those moments, I don't think I did it like that, but, you know, having those moments of, like,
I hope it was like that, though. I want it to be like that.
Actually, I think it was close.
You're bad at your job.
Well, it was just one of those things. Is don't just wait for someone to say, hey, here's your thing. Like, if you know yourself, we're obsessed about what's going on in our brains and in our bodies, so there's no one's going to do more research than we are. And you go out and you do it, you do your homework, and you nail it down, and then great, right? Because we're at time too, but like it's just one of those things. It's like a heart surgeon is a heart surgeon. Cool, you're a heart surgeon. You've gone to school and you've done heart surgeries on cadavers and then eventually on people, right? But every person is different. So you might have done 50 heart surgeries. You may not have run into this one thing, and that's something super complex. But something even more surface level is like this. Every single human being is so different. We all have different fingerprints, for fuck's sake, right? So we all have different fingerprints, which means everything about our chemical makeup is different, right? Even our doppelgangers out there are still different than we are here, and we can go on funny stories about that. This isn't the island, but so the point is
we'll make a Discord channel for that.
Yes, there were so many channels.
Post your doppelganger.
Yeah.
We only have so many. It's fine.
So many, but again, it really is there's nobody that knows yourself better than you do, and if you have to get the ball moving, then get the ball moving, and if that person that you're talking to isn't helpful, you get them the fuck out of the way, and then you go find someone that is, and be like, hey, this is what I've been dealing with. This person did this, this, and this. Didn't like the direction was going. I did some research. I kind of feel like it's this. Could you help me navigate that? Awesome, right? And if you come out there and you just lay it all out, then boom. It's like, hey, I've done your job for you. Can you help push it this way? And then you're done.
Well, and for the love of God, don't be afraid to reach out. Like, even if you don't know exactly what's going on, don't be afraid to reach out to people that love you. Or don't be afraid to reach out to a random friggin' hotline to get started, dude. Whatever it takes, don't hesitate. It's okay. Ain't nobody gonna judge you, and if they do, screw them.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
That's the biggest thing. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But like, don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it does not matter what other people.
Yeah.
You love yourself and take care of yourself first.
But the other side of the coin, and again, we're over time, so we have to get going. But the other side of the coin is that people that do it because of other mental issues, they do it for attention, they do it for sympathy, they do it for
malingerers.
Yeah, and there are those out there. I'd like to punch them all in the face, but no, I can't do that.
Stop taking Ritalin recreationally, because what you're doing is making it a lot harder for people who need it.
Yeah.
So that's my little PSA.
Yes.
Knock it off. If anyone out there is doing.
But I mean, posers will be posers, and I get it, and if someone is sensitive to it, if you were trying to get benefits, if you're trying to just get attention, and you say, oh, I just have AD&D, or someone is just very neat or not neat, and you use that as like a crutch. It's like, oh, I just have AD&D, that's why I'm an asshole, or whatever the things are, right? And it's just exploiting, right? It's no different than saying, I don't even know. Well, I have a gay friend. That means I'm not homophobic. No, actually, that makes you very homophobic, right? It's no different.
Makes you an asshole for saying that too.
Exactly. So it's.
They're not a token for you. Thank you.
Exactly, a token.
You make it so people who are neurodivergent will not trust you.
Yes. Yeah.
Give me back your ally card.
And I will punch you in the face. But all that being said, we have gone long. We have to get ready for Legends of Shao Gal. But Taryn and then Rachel, please let me know where people can find you. And thank you so much for joining this panel.
Wait, I'm getting better. You can catch me at Valrook on Instagram, and I post stuff. And I'll be making new Shine the Pretty Dice soon. I just thought you should all know.
You can find me fighting fascists behind your local IHOP. On Instagram, you can find me at Bad Duck Design, as well as Corbeau Crochet. If you want to follow me personally, I have a lot of channels. It's Manic Pixie Tank Girl. I'm going to also be releasing some stuff this week. So I know we don't have much in life right now, but we have merch to sell you. Please buy our stuff.
Please buy our stuff. Do it.
Thank you all so much for the panel. Thank you all so much for all the questions and helping build this amazing inclusive community. We love you guys so much. And I have to do a thing. I'm sitting here all ooey gooey, and I got to do a thing.
Oh yeah, you got to do a thing.
I was about to put crazy as a keyword. That's not right.
Solo?
Mind.
There you go.
There we go. Go ahead and type mind in the chat. Mind in the chat to enter in the Between Show giveaway. And we'll be back in about 25 minutes. We'll see.